Hey ghouls and gals, welcome back to another weekly reading vlog. It is Sunday night and this is kind of like a spur of the moment decision to start a weekly reading vlog because I haven't really been doing them. I've been averaging like one a month and I wasn't really planning on doing one this week. But I felt like it might be kind of a fun week to do it because number one, I'm going to be reading some really anticipated books and some books that I think I'm really going to love to talk about. So that's always a plus. I feel like it's always more fun reading like books that you really enjoy for reading vlogs, and always a bummer when it doesn't work out the way that you want it and just end up with a bunch of misses. So I think I've got some winners on my hands this week, so that'll be fun. And then secondly, we found out this weekend that we might be moving a lot sooner than anticipated. So my partner and I were originally going to be moving this summer. He's starting a PhD program in the fall, so we were going to move to this new state this summer, and we actually learned this weekend that that's kind of being like moved up a little bit. There's a job opportunity on the table like before the schooling starts, and it's just a really good opportunity. So we might be moving this month, which is crazy. We're originally planning on moving like at the end of May, beginning of June, something like that, most likely in June, but then now we might be moving by the end of this month, which is number one, very exciting because we've been looking forward to this for a very long time. But then number two, it's a little bit nerve-wracking because obviously we're moving up our schedule by a couple of months, so we have not like even started packing or getting ready or anything like that. So March is looking like it's gonna be a really fun month and a very jam-packed month as well. So figured it would be a good week to vlog. So since this is a reading vlog, I do have some reading plans for you guys, and I'll talk about first what I'm currently reading at the moment. I'm about, I think, pretty much halfway through exactly, and that's going to be A Dark and Hollow Star by Ashley Shuttleworth. I am really enjoying this. This is a YA urban fantasy that takes place largely in Toronto, which is really fun. I haven't read, actually, I think any fantasy that takes place in Canada, so this has been very enjoyable. It actually kind of gives me Crescent City vibes a little bit, just because it's not in a different world like Crescent City. This is taking place in our world, but there's like a fae court and a fae world that is separate from our world. We're all living on the same earth together, but there's like a secret society, kind of like Harry Potter. All the wizards kind of live alongside non-wizards, but their world is kept a secret. That's kind of how the world of the fae is here, and we follow 4 teenagers. There's actually this evil that is killing ironborn fae children slash young adults, and we have 4 main points of view. They're all trying to figure out who or what is killing all of these fae, and all of them have very different motives for trying to figure out this, but it definitely gives me the same sort of vibes as Crescent City, with it is a fantastical setting, but there is a murderer on the loose, and that is the main source of plot, at least for the first book. This is the first in the series. I'm really enjoying it. I'm having a lot of fun. It does kind of deal with some dark topics, but what I think is really, really cool is there is an author's note at the beginning of the book with a list of triggers, which is really, really awesome. And I think it should become standard industry practices because I, at least on my channel, I try and for books give as many triggers as I can if I think of them, and that's the hard thing too. Even as someone who I personally do have triggers in books that I can't read about, even like having those for me and knowing them and really appreciating when trigger warnings are shared, it's something that I really do struggle with. Not in terms of like I don't believe in them or I don't believe they should exist. I think it's wonderful, but when I'm like doing wrap-ups or reviews and I'm trying to think like just on the fly of a comprehensive list of triggering topics, I might miss them if they're not triggers for me. So I really appreciate how this specific book, they took the time, and there are content warnings for everything in this book, which is really cool. And I definitely think that more books should do that. I think this is the perfect solution because if you're one of those people that think trigger warnings are a spoiler, I don't think they are. But if you do think that, it's just at the very beginning, you can see, oh, these are going to list out all the content warnings, and just skip it and go into the story. If you need it, they're right there in the beginning of the book, which is really nice. Content warning aside, this is really, really great, and I'm having a lot of fun with it, and it's definitely one of my favorite covers of the year. I absolutely am in love with it. The second book has not been released yet, but I'm really excited to see like who's going to be on the cover of the second book because each of our 4 main characters are so cool, and I'm really enjoying like all of them equally. equally that I just can't wait to see like a depiction of them on the cover, because I definitely know which main character this is, but there are 3 other ones. So hopefully this will be like a quartet or something like that, because I'm really, really enjoying this world. And then secondly, we're going in a very, very different direction, and please don't laugh because this is, I understand it's a nightmare of a book. This is not my book. I got it for free somewhere. I think it was like at a garage sale, or someone was just like getting rid of things for free. So I didn't pay any money for it, and it's a little rough, and I didn't do it. I just found it like this. But that's going to be The Stand by Stephen King. This very, very loved edition of The Stand, because I don't know why. I don't know why I picked this up. Again, I didn't pay for it. She's very battered, but I mostly do use this copy as decoration somewhere else. Like, it's not on my bookshelves. I felt like since it's an apocalypse book, it'd be fun to read this very battered copy. I've used this as like a Halloween prop. I've been meaning to read this for a while. I was actually going to read it last year, and then everything happened, and my thinking was just, okay, I'll just wait for this to blow over. It's a little too close to home. I don't want to read an entire huge 1,000-page story about a pandemic and then an apocalypse, when that's not the apocalypse part, hopefully, but when we were going through similar struggles in the world. And just, you know, a year into all of this, I feel like I've seen a lot of people on booktube actually like pick this book up, so it's inspired me to read it. It's definitely the most intimidating book on my shelves, so I figured I'd give this one a go. If this gets too rough, I might DNF it, just because we're still very much in a pandemic, and this, you know, might hit a little too close to home. We'll see. Yeah, I'm nervous. I might pick this up. I might not. Again, it's huge, so I won't be finishing it this week, but yeah, that's my other plan in terms of reading this week. So that is pretty much it. I work 3 days this week, so I should have plenty of time to read and to talk with you guys about books. My partner and I are also watching every single Marvel movie, just because we finished WandaVision and it was good, and we just are craving to be back in the world. And just, yeah, we're doing it in chronological order, like in terms of when the movies take place as opposed to when the movies come out. So we did start this weekend. We watched Captain America, the first Avenger, and then Captain Marvel, and then we watched Iron Man tonight. So that'll also be happening this week, but we're trying to space that out, so hopefully I'll still have a lot of time to read. And I think we're gonna skip a couple, like Iron Man 2, Thor 1. Maybe we'll watch Thor 1, but Thor 2 we'll probably skip. Just a couple that we don't like so much we'll probably skip, but yeah, that's gonna be something that we're going to be doing this week as well. So that's going to be it for this introductory clip, and I will talk to you guys later. I just need to take a moment and appreciate at the beginning of this vlog, I said I had all winners for my books and there weren't going to be any not winners in terms of reading, and of course I think I jinxed myself with that because unfortunately the first book that I finished this week was not my favorite. That's okay. Yesterday I actually started packing, so I don't actually have any boxes packed yet, but I went through every single piece of clothing that I owned and I took the time to really look at each individual piece and decide whether I wanted to keep it and bring it with me in the move or just get rid of it. I'm a very sentimental person for no reason a lot of the times, so there are some clothes that I'm getting rid of now that I haven't worn in 10 years, but because I have like maybe one happy memory tied to a shirt or a pair of shorts or something like that, I want to keep it because it's a memory, which is quite silly because a lot of the stuff, you know, some of it doesn't fit, some of it still does, but again, I don't wear like the same kind of clothes normally that I would 8 years ago, 10 years ago, something like that, like in high school. So while I didn't actually pack any boxes yesterday, I did manage to go through every single piece of clothing, and that's no small feat. So when I go back to pack up all of my clothes, I'll know that I want to keep every single item there. Now, this was a lengthy task, so I did listen to an audiobook while I was doing it. I had started The Project by Courtney and I continued to listen to it while I was doing this task, and I was very wrapped up in both the audiobook and what I was doing, and at the point where I probably should have DNF'd to this one, but you know, my hands were full, I was busy doing things, and I was like, okay, you know, I'll just keep listening because I am on a roll with my task right now, and it's a lot easier to keep doing this, keep listening to the audiobook, than stop and try and pick out something else and kind of derail the whole thing. So I finished The Project by Courtney Summers, and I didn't enjoy it as much as I wanted to. So the synopsis for this one is about a young woman and her sister is at The Project place where her sister thinks it's a cult, but the sister who's in this church group obviously doesn't believe that. She thinks it's just a community, and no one else really thinks that this is a cult. It's just kind of a group of people doing good, and they just kind of live together in some sort of like farm slash commune, and our main character is the only person who believes that something more sinister is going on at this Unity project. And she also works like at a true crime slash investigative journalist's office, and she's a receptionist there. And so she has to, number one, try and get her sister out of this place, and then number two, expose the truth about the Unity project. I can't really give too many thoughts on this without them being super spoilery, but I felt like this was potentially a little bit of a different story, what we got, than what was kind of promised with the synopsis. I will say, if you're gonna pick this book up, I don't recommend the audiobook. I did listen to the audiobook, and it goes back and forth between the two sisters. They're each point of view characters. So you have B and you have Lo. There aren't any chapters or anything like that. I think there are parts, but they're larger parts in the story. They're not traditional chapters, and you'll go from one point of view to the other without like a lot of notice, and it was just a little confusing at times. And I will say the biggest thing that I don't think is a spoiler that I can talk about is one of my like least favorite things in a thriller. I hesitate to call this a thriller. I don't know if it would be technically classified as a thriller, but in like the mystery thriller horror genre, where if you do have points of view, how one character, you'll have their point of view, they experience something, and then the next point of view, they either learn in depth about what happened, which you as the reader don't need to know because you just followed it through someone else's point of view, or the same exact thing will happen to them, which again, you don't need because you just saw it in a different point of view. So it was like a little repetitive slash unneeded. And ultimately at the end of the day, with the messages, I guess, that you're kind of supposed to take away from this, I just don't think I was the target audience for this book. So yeah, unfortunately, first book in this reading vlog was a bit of a miss, but I do have some other books to talk about. First off is A Dark and Hollow Star by Ashley Shuttleworth. I am about 60% of the way through this one. I am still absolutely loving this. This is just really fun, and it really shows like a new genre slash kind of tropes that I'm really in love with. I really enjoy a fantasy world, a fantasy-centric world with fantasy characters where there's a murder mystery. I think that's really fun. So a little bit of horror thriller, a little bit of fantasy. I'm really enjoying this. I am taking my time with it because I'm really enjoying it. It's a whole lot of fun. There are obviously some darker topics in here, but the main characters are just so much fun. I anticipate that I'll be finishing this book sometime tonight. I do work, so probably after that I'll come back and finish up. I think I have about 100 pages left. And then the last little bit of news for this update. So I got my book of the month, which will be my last book of the month box before we move. I probably would have only gotten one book had I realized we were moving at the end of this month, but that's okay. I did get 3, and then I will be putting it on hold just while we move and get a new address and everything like that. But I am really excited about this one. So I got one random add-on, and I believe this is actually a January pick from last year, and it is Things in Jars by Jess Kidd. I don't really know too much about this one. I know it's a standalone fantasy. I know it's set in like Victorian England, and it has to do with magical creatures. So yeah, it says Victorian London comes to life in this spellbinding mystery as a female sleuth wades through a murky world of collectors and criminals to recover a remarkable child. So this just sounds really fun. I'm always on the hunt for standalone fantasies to kind of supplement and read in between my larger series that I read. And Victorian England, especially with magic or speculative elements, is always a really fun time period for me to read from. And then the second 2 books that I got were actually monthly picks for this month. So the first one is The Final Revival of Opal and Nev by Donnie Walton, and this I've heard gives Daisy Jones and the Six vibes, just in terms of, I think this is told in a non-traditional story format. I think it's like magazine articles and interviews and non-traditional storytelling in that aspect, but it's supposed to be non-fiction even though it's fictionalized, and it's following this band or this duo act, I guess, Opal and Nev. So I'm looking forward to this one. I did really enjoy Daisy Jones and the Six. So it's following Opal, who is a black punk artist before her time, and she lives in Detroit, and she meets up with British singer-songwriter Neville Charles, who discovers her at a bar's amateur night, and they decide to make rock music together in early 70s New York City. So this sounds like a whole lot of fun as well. I really enjoyed, again, the non-traditional format of Daisy Jones and the Six, and this has been getting a lot of comparisons to that, so I'm looking forward to reading about like another band in the 70s. That just sounds really fun. And then the last book was actually on my most anticipated for March, so I'm really glad that they had this one as a pick, and that is going to be The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. This takes place in, I believe, London as well, 18th century London, and it is about a secret apothecary shop that sells poisons to only women to use against the oppressive men in their lives. So that's really exciting as well. The cover actually has gold foiling. I always love when Book of the Month actually includes like details like that in their books, because a lot of the time they don't, just because it is a cheaper option to get the books this way. And I'm very excited to read this one. I actually am going to try and squeeze it in on my TBR for this month because I'm very much looking forward to it. So yeah, those are my 3 books that I got from Book of the Month. Looking forward to all of them again. Probably shouldn't have gotten 3 more full-size books right before we're about to move, because that's just 3 more books to pack up, but that's okay. I actually also need to go through my shelves and see if there are any books that I can get rid of, donate, pass on to someone else, just because, you know, any little bit helps when you're moving. If you can just clear out as much clutter as you can, that's usually kind of a goal for me. So today I do work just for a little bit. I'm going in to help with some backroom inventory things, and that should only take about 2 hours, if that. So the rest of the day I'm going to try and pack a little bit. I'm trying to pack a little bit each day so it doesn't become too overwhelming, and then of course hopefully finish up A Dark and Hollow Star, maybe even get to The Stand back there or another book. But that is all I have right now for this update, so I will talk to you all a little bit later. So it is now Sunday, and I think I'm going to keep vlogging throughout Monday and then wrap up the vlog on Monday, just because I did not really update at all this weekend. I went back home, visited my family since we are moving soon, and unfortunately, currently right now, I do live 2 hours away from my parents and then my siblings that still live at home. However, we're going to be about 10 hours away after this move, which is very unfortunate. So for as many weekends as possible, we're just going to try and spend, at least this was just a solo trip for me, but me and my partner are going to try and spend as much time as possible with our parents, because his parents also do live in the same town as mine. But we're going to try and spend as much time as possible just on the weekends over there until we move, just to get some last minute quality family time in, just because unfortunately it's going to be a lot harder to visit them with the move and everything going on. But reading update, I did get some reading done this weekend, even though I didn't really update at all, but I did finish A Dark and Hollow Star by Ashley Shuttleworth, and I really enjoyed this one. Not to diminish, because it does talk and go to some pretty dark places in here, but this was just a whole lot of fun to read. It's like a fae urban fantasy, the perfect combination of all of that. This was a whole lot of fun. I really enjoyed reading it. I think I saw on TikTok that this is supposed to be a duology. I really hope it's not a duology, just because the ending of this left it very open-ended for a larger series, and while of course I have complete faith that the author would be able to complete that story arc in 2 books, I think it is a story that definitely could be expanded to more than 2 books, and I really do love this world. I think it's really neat, and I really enjoy our characters, so the more time that I would get to spend with them, the better, because we do follow, again, I think I've said this before in the vlog, but 4 main points of view, and this book is very introductory in the fact where they're kind of split up for most of the book and then they team up at the end, so I just want to see more of the group dynamic, and I'm looking forward to that in the books to come. And like I've mentioned before, this book is one of my most anticipated books that I had on my list for 2021, and I'm really glad that I read it so soon and that it definitely did live up to my expectations. This is a YA. It does feel like a YA, and there are some, I hesitate to say tropes because I feel like a lot of the time that word kind of comes with connotations, but there are some staples of the genre in here, and I just really like the way that they were done. And this definitely feels like it is a little bit on the older side of YA, where if you're a person who is trying to kind of bridge the gap between YA and adult, this would be a really good read for that. But also if you do read primarily adult fantasy and you're looking for YA that doesn't read too young, I mean, the characters are kind of young. Some of them are around 18 or 19. They definitely act like teenagers at times in a very realistic way, but I think the plot and the world are enough where I feel like some YA is definitely geared towards YA readers, which obviously that's what the genre is for, but I feel like this book has a lot of wide appeal. So yeah, this was a whole lot of fun. It is getting very late, and I do just kind of want to relax now because I just drove home and now I'm home, and I did just want to give a quick little reading update. So yeah, I finished this book, very happy with it, and I will check back in with you tomorrow. Alright, so I am here to wrap up the vlog, just kind of briefly go over all of the books that I read this week. All in all, it was a really good reading week, a really good start to March. At least for the most part, I did primarily read some really good books. I already talked about the book that was a little bit of a disappointment, so I'm not going to hark on that too much longer, as well as A Dark and Hollow Star. I've already talked about this one at length. This is the book that I've talked about most this week, but out of any of these books that I'm talking about in this vlog, definitely this one has been my favorite, and I am so excited for the sequel. I was looking up when the sequel was, and that's 2022, and I thought that was such a long way away. even though it is 2021. So technically it's only a year off, which isn't too bad, but for whatever reason, from 2021 to 2022 seems like more time than between 2020 and 2021. I don't know what it is, but I am very, very excited for this sequel. If you are looking for a YA urban fantasy set in Toronto with a cast of queer main characters, this was really, really fun. It does delve into some darker topics, but it does have a full list of trigger warnings in the front of this book, which is really neat. I highly recommend this one. I really, really enjoyed my time reading it. Cannot wait for the sequel. Now, I did also talk about how I wanted to at least start the stand this week, and I technically did start it this week. I am not very far in it at all. I'm on page 23. This has been, while I am excited to read this, a little bit of a rough one to get into because some of the points of view are from terrible, terrible people. Stephen King does write really wonderful characters, but he also writes really horrific and terrible characters, and it's just a little bit hard sometimes, especially starting a huge tome like this one, to have kind of a chapter where you're not really liking the character. You're not supposed to like the character, but it's hard being in their point of view. So I actually looked on Libby, my library app, and saw that they had the audiobook. However, this is the original copy of The Stand. The Stand was later re-released in an extended edition, making it even longer than this. And I had thought, you know, maybe it wasn't going to be too much of a difference. I started listening to the audiobook to try and maybe read along with that just until I got into more of the action and maybe got past all of the introductions of some of the characters that I didn't like. Right from the beginning, the first chapter, or I think it might have just been an epilogue, is different than the first chapter in this. So if you've read The Stand before, let me know which version I should read, because I know there is more content in the extended version, and I probably would have gone with that no matter what. However, you know, this book is super duper long, and I am sure that the original cuts were kind of made for a reason, and just because Stephen King is so prolific, I feel like they went ahead and said, that's fine, go ahead and add some of these parts back in, even though originally they were cut by an editor for a reason, I'm assuming. So I don't know how much more the extended edition would add to my enjoyment of the book, but that is the only way I can listen to the audiobook. So I guess if you have a strong opinion on this, let me know down below. Should I just read the physical edition, the original way it came out and was published, or should I switch to the audiobook and read the extended version? Let me know in the comments down below. And then the last book that I actually started last night, continued reading today. I'm not that far into it. I'm 38% of the way through the audiobook, and that is going to be Clown in a Cornfield by Cesare. And this is a YA horror that came out last year, and I'm finally getting around to it, and it is a lot of fun from what I'm reading so far. This was one that I wanted to read in October last year, just never got around to it, but then I had heard some very mixed reviews from people who I have similar reading tastes to, so I didn't really prioritize it, but finally got around to listening to the audiobook, and I am really enjoying it. I do see how it could be a little bit divisive on whether or not you would like it, because it is the book equivalent of a slasher movie, a teen slasher movie, which the premise, as you can maybe guess from the cover and the title, it is a little bit campy, it's a little bit cheesy, and it does follow pretty much beat for beat a traditional slasher movie. So if you really enjoy those B-list movies that feature like a group of teens making dumb decisions and getting picked off one by some sort of big bad character, then I think you'd really like this. Obviously, I know those types of movies and books. Obviously, this is a book, but it does really feel like a movie, and it would be such a great campy movie. I can like see it in my head perfectly, but if you don't tend to like movies like that, I don't think you'd enjoy this book, because it does lean into like the campy splatter gore sort of genre. It's not very believable, at least at this point. The characters are surface level and a little bit of caricatures, but I don't think that they need to be any deeper than they are at this moment. And I am very much someone who's usually a very character-driven reader, so I think it works really well for this plot, that the plot is focused more on the plot and not the characters. But if you're really character driven and really character focused, you may not like that, but that's all I really have to say about it, because again, I'm not even 50% of the way into it, but I am really enjoying that one and I'm excited to finish that up this upcoming week. But that is pretty much going to be it for this reading vlog. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, subscribe for more content from me. I'm hoping to upload more vlogs on a more consistent basis, but thank you again for watching. Stay safe, stay spooky, and I'll see y'all on the other side. Bye!